Hello and welcome to episode 30, can you believe it, of the Your Way podcast. It is so lovely to be back with you. This is going to be a relatively short episode today, and I'm just going to touch upon some of the insights and realizations that I had having a month off, not only the podcast, but also social media throughout August. And what I suspect I will do is kind of dive into them in more detail. So I've called this episode, I've looked like about the masterpiece that is you. And that might not feel immediately apparent as a theme from my decision to having taken a month off. But here's the interesting thing, right? I think it's very, very easy for us to lose parts of ourselves to the noise that surrounds us on a day-to-day basis. It's very easy for us to start to second guess and to lose some of our self-trust or access to our kind of innate knowledge, wisdom, intuition when there is so much noise out there from all directions telling you who you need to be, how you need to be, how you need to show up, what you need to do, what you need to not do in order to be a palatable version of you in the world that we live in. And I just think it's absolute nonsense. But sometimes we have to step away to realize that it is absolute nonsense. So I felt a very strong nudge at the end of June that I needed some time off social media. And I decided that August was that time. Now, interestingly, that space served me for many, many different reasons. My granddad passed away on the 12th of August. I spent a week with my family the following week. And again, might talk about that on other podcasts, but those situations obviously presented additional challenges, but and also additional insights and learnings for me as I move through things. But what I realized, my big realizations are that whilst I teach a masterclass each month called Find Your Voice. And that's free from now on, by the way. So if you want to sign up to the next one, which is going to be on Monday, the 16th of September, head to the show notes. There's a link there. You can sign up. It's completely free, 90-minute workshop to help you really find your true voice and use it. What I recognized was there are times when I have been second guessing my voice, or I have not been using my voice because this little other voice goes in my head of like, if you say that, this person's not going to like it. If you say that, there's going to be some backlash. If you say what you really think, if you really come out and say what you really think and what you believe and let people see that bit of who you are, that's not okay. And so I have spent a lot of time this month really resourcing myself and strengthening myself from this place of fuck you very much, but I have a voice, I have stuff that needs to be said, and I am the person that needs to say it, even if other people might not agree, even if other people might not have the same approach. It doesn't matter. I'm not saying that I'm right. I'm saying that I have a view and a voice that needs to be heard, and people can take or leave it. Okay. And sometimes that is hard to do. So, what I recognized was that there are times where I am out of alignment with teaching other people to find and use their voice and do it your way, because I still have times and situations where I'm not doing that because I'm afraid of the backlash from other people. Okay. And sometimes they're people that I don't know, but sometimes it's like specific people. And so one of the things that I learned this last month is I don't have to put myself in the spaces or around the people where I don't feel that I can be my full self. If I find myself shrinking or holding back or going into a bit of a freeze state for the nervous system buds out there, I get to choose to not be in those environments. I get to choose to do the work on myself so that I feel safe to show up and share and say what I want to say. And another realization that I've had around that is the spaces that I want to do that are not my social media. Sometimes, yes, but generally, no. I want the spaces where I'm sharing like the deep, gritty stuff to be this podcast, to be my email list, where people have intentionally opted into hearing what I want to say. So, again, if you want to hear like the real, raw truth, yes, sure, still come and hang out with me on social media. But what you really need to do is make sure you're listening to this podcast, which I do every other week, and that you come and get yourself on my email list. And again, the link's in the show notes. The one right at the bottom that talks about checking out my other offerings. There's various free classes that you can sign up to on there, which will get you on my email list. And then there's also just, I think there's one at the bottom that says you're on my email list. So that will get you all there, because one of the things that I want to talk about more and look at more are slightly unconventional ways that we are maybe manipulated and controlled in society. And that is a deep, important conversation. It's not a deep, important conversation that everyone wants to engage in. Yes, part of that is how we are manipulated and controlled sometimes in the coaching industry by clever marketing, but also it's wider than that. It's societal controls, it's the controls we've had in our education system, it's the family systems that we've not really looked at yet. And I want to hold a space for you, if you want it, to look at some of this stuff to awaken more of your awareness and more of the truth of the world you live in. So if you're like, yes, this sounds great, then subscribe to the podcast, sign up to my email list. And if you're like, yeah, Louise, I just quite like your normal social media posts, then carry on as normal. And so other things that I've learned, and this might be a little bit disjointed because I'll be honest, I'm not feeling that well today. I have made a promise to myself that the podcast is coming back in September, and this is the slot I have. So I'm here showing up for you. So if you're like, she seems a bit different today, um, I'm going to share with you what I did. I bought myself some high strength prebiotic, probiotic medication, but it was packaged in these lovely chocolate balls. And they were so delicious that I ate more than I should have done. Public service announcement to you guys. Do not take considerably more probiotics than the recommended amount, especially if you're just doing it for the first time, because I didn't really sleep last night. I had stomach cramps like you would not believe, like the whole night. So I have spent a lot of time resting and sleeping today, but if I seem a little bit jaded, it's because I am absolutely delighted to be here. And if you have had any faux pas when you're trying to do something healthy for yourself and it's gone a bit wrong, then come and share it with me so I don't feel like I'm alone. So we take the space sometimes to learn to be ourselves, that, whichever philosophy you want to look at, whatever your view is on your life path, learning to be yourself, learning to lean into your gifts, learning to block out the noise that tells you that you are too much or not enough or a heady mix of the two is so, so important, because what I'm realizing is we're at this point in our lives, in the world, in the system of the world, where more people are needed to stand up, to have a voice, to use their voice, to make change, to facilitate change, to be the rebel instead of being the good girl that doesn't rock the boat or just behaves themselves. And the journey of creating the masterpiece that is you, the real, real you, requires you to accept all of who you are, to share all of who you are. I don't mean all, but do you know what I mean? Not to hide the bits that you've decided aren't okay, because often they are your superpowers. To lean into your gifts and be open to the fact that you do, in fact, have unique gifts that the world needs to experience. But also, and this is my big insight from this month, to block out the noise that prevents you from doing what you need to do. There are many systems and structures in place in the world that we live in all the areas that make us fearful or seek to make us fearful, that seek to keep us stuck, that seek to keep us compliant. And you have to find a way to move away from that fear into self-trust, into, I know they're saying this thing, it doesn't feel true for me. Like, where can I go and explore? What can I go and find out to help me explore, unearth, make sense of how I want to view this thing that's been shared in this way? Like, how do I want to make sense of it? How do I want to incorporate that or not into my world? And why would we do this? Why would we do this? First of all, when you can be yourself, when you can feel comfortable with the truth of the world, and when you can see things as they really are, that is when you create freedom for yourself. I mean, like mental and emotional freedom. No more pushing, no more trying to prove, no more trying to be someone that you aren't. Also, freedom more widely, because you are no longer sucked down the vortex of be fearful, be scared. And when you're no longer sucked down the vortex of be fearful and be scared, you can move into a place of love. Love for yourself, love for others, love for your life, of joy, of happiness, of abundance. Instead of fear and scarcity and pushing and hustling and burning yourself out, or all of the things that you do because your default position is, I am not good enough as I am. Who I am is not worthy. Who I am does not deserve to have the life that I desire. It's all bullshit. It's all bullshit that has been given to you by other people. And when you step into the masterpiece of who you are, you get to put that all down. I had this realization a couple of weeks ago. So I'm recording this at the end of August. And last week was the week that I was away. And then the week before was the week that my granddad died. And so, but the first 2 weeks of August were very much, chill, relax, not be in the zone, really focusing on myself, really following where life was leading me, copious amounts of space and time. And I had this realization one evening. I'd done hardly anything all day. But I'd had a couple of ideas for emails, and I'd written those and sent them to my assistant, because I have a lovely assistant who does the tech side of my business. And I had this realization that I'd stopped pushing. I'd given myself permission, right? I think it was the last podcast I did. I talked about this grand experiment of, nothing's going to go horribly wrong in a month. Okay. And so for me, it was like, what happens if I stop pushing, stop forcing, stop showing up, stop doing all of the shoulds for a month? What happens? And I had this realization of, when I stop being in a place of fear and panic and scarcity and allow myself to just be, to show up from a place of service. If you're on my email list, you've had more emails from me this month. You haven't had millions, but you've had more. That's how I chose to show up and serve this month. If you're in my client spaces, I've been more present and more active in those spaces. Right? That's how I chose to show up and serve. But when I'm not in this fear, panic, and scarcity of, I need to post on social media multiple times a day, and I need to be meeting new people all the time, and I need to do this and I need to do that and the other. Because if I'm not doing this, if I'm not growing, then I'm dying, and it's all going to go horribly wrong. When I get out of that space, a fear-based space, and I'm not saying any of that stuff is wrong, but it can feel wrong if it doesn't feel in alignment for you. All of a sudden, this vortex opened up, and this vortex was so much time for being, for living, for loving, for feeling creative, and for peace. I read so much this month. I read back on all of the notes from all of my trauma certification, all my nervous system, all my body stuff, and was flooded with ideas of things I want to do for my groups. I read books on dreaming, books that I've wanted to dive into for a while, like much more spiritual stuff. I started in fact, I finished a trashy chick lit book. I've started a second. All of these things that I love to do, but don't ordinarily make the time for, I realized when I stopped pushing, when I stopped spending hours staring into my phone on social media, I don't know, hoping somehow that just scrolling and commenting would somehow elicit some magic result. Mindlessly, sometimes for hours, often when I should have been asleep. When I stopped doing that, I got to live, I got to be, I got to love, I got more ideas, I got more creativity, and it created the capacity for me to go and explore some of the rabbit holes that I didn't even know existed. But when I created that space, life opened up things that I explored, and the lid has been blown off my world this month. The systems that I've looked at, the controls I've looked at, the way that society tries to keep us just so has been incredible. Yes, you may wish to call me a conspiracy theorist from now on. But it's fascinating, right? It's fascinating what it opened up. And I had this realization, and I'm looking down because I wrote this down. You don't have to spend as much time as you think to create the stuff you want. It's all a lie, right? You can get incredible results by spending incredible amounts of time on stuff. And you can get incredible results by spending a whole lot less time on stuff. Because you get the results that are best for you when you follow where life is leading you, where you do what feels aligned to you, when you do what matches your energy, your desires, your wants, your needs, not the rule book that has been handed to you by someone else about how you are meant to live your life, how you are meant to do your work. If you're an entrepreneur, how you're meant to run your business. And the challenge is all the time you try and do it someone else's way, someone else's strategy, someone else's approach, someone else's rules. You run the risk of losing you in the process. And if you lose you in the process, the world doesn't get to experience your gifts, your uniqueness, your brilliance. Okay. There are people that I know who are the most nurturing, the most loving. They are healers all day long. They've got like this spirit and their soul, and they're so good. And somewhere along the way, there's this disconnect between who they are and then what they think they need to do. And so what they do is very clinical, it's very technical, and there's nothing wrong with that. But it's like the heart of who they are doesn't get to shine. And then their business doesn't get to shine because they aren't actually allowing themselves to bring them through into what they are doing. And a lot of the time, that is because they are listening to other people telling them, you need to do this, that, or the other. Now, I'm all for having mentorship. I'm all for having someone help you with strategy. But let's do it in a way that allows you to shine and your stuff to come through and your unique gifts and doing it, really, really, really doing it your way. And yes, obviously, I have a membership program called Your Way. And so it's very easy for me to drop that in terms of like, do it your way. And that's my thing. But the reason that I have the membership is because I so deeply, deeply believe it. We aren't here to live anyone else's lives other than our own. There are so many ways to get the results that you want. And if you take nothing else from this episode this week, start to challenge some of the things that you believe you have to do in order to have the life you want. Start to experiment, start to play around, start to notice the people, places, and spaces where you feel yourself constrict, where you don't feel like you can be all of who you are, and make a very intentional decision about what you want to do about your involvement in that. Like, we all have to live in society. There is an element to which we have to live in the system that we are involved in. But you also get to choose what that level of involvement looks like. It's not for me to tell you what that looks like. It's for you to decide what that looks like. So I hope this has given you some stuff to think about. It's quite nice actually, because I actually feel better the more of this I'm doing. I'm like, oh yes, okay, it's okay. My stomach's not hurting anymore. No more probiotics for me. So it's lovely, lovely, lovely to be back with you. I would love to hear how you found this episode. I would love to hear your insights. Check out the links below. Come to the Find Your Voice class. It's completely free. I want to give you some tools so that you can leave that 90-minute workshop feeling empowered to embody what is required to show up and use your voice, and to know what your voice is, to find your voice, to use your voice. Because the world needs you to shine. And that doesn't mean the world needs you to shine in a big glaring way if you're like, no, but I'm an introvert and I don't want to shine. You can be a quiet mouse that hardly knows anyone, and you get to shine in the spaces where you show up. That's what this is about. Taking that path back to who you are, really. And I would love to help you on that journey. So sign up to the class in the show notes. Let me know how you found this episode. Please subscribe if you are enjoying these so that you never miss an episode. It would be an absolute pleasure and a delight of mine if you could leave me a review on Spotify or if you are listening on either of those. And please do share this episode with someone who you think might need to hear it. A lot of people are very, 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 very bound up in someone else's rules, systems, and processes. And it's time to help them break free. It's time to help them break free of that. So I'm going to leave it there. I send you all so much love, and I will see you very soon. Bye.
Before you go, I so hope that you enjoyed today's episode. And if you did, I'd like to ask you a favor, please, because the way that this podcast grows and the way that more people get to benefit from these materials is that more people find it. And that means that subscribes and likes and shares are so, so important to this space. So, my ask of you, if you got value from the podcast today, is give it a review, give it a like, share it with a friend, and make sure that you are subscribed. I really appreciate it. I really appreciate you being here. And I look forward to continuing to support you to do life, business, relationships, and all of it your way.